I thought two of my best friends ghosted me. Turns out they passed away. I used to see Steve and Nikki at the bar all the time. They were a happy couple, always there for me, and I would do anything for them in return. They were caring and principled, genuinely good people. When I was homeless, they took me in. When I was hungry, they fed me. When I was sad, they lifted my spirits. Steve had a 9-year-old son from a previous marriage, and Nikki was a wonderful parent. Steve worked in cybersecurity, while Nikki was in food service. But both of them struggled with addiction. Steve was a recovering heroin addict, sober for over a decade, and Nikki was an alcoholic trying to find her way to sobriety. They often turned to other substances, losing themselves for days at a time. One day, Steve and I talked about a woman I had previously hooked up with. He wanted to know if it was okay to pursue her, and I told him it was fine. We joked about some politicians we didn't like. That was the last time I saw him or Nikki. A few days later, I sent my usual homie checkup text, but there was no response. I didn't return to the bar for a while, trying to save money and drink less. When I finally went back, I learned that Steve had done enough drugs that his heart nearly gave out. He had a heart attack. Nikki had heart issues too, possibly from a bad bat, and she passed away shortly after. I found out later that Nikki had a DNR, but I'm not sure if that played a role. They both had so much going for them. Steve with his house, child, and good job. Nikki, young and full of life, with friends and opportunities. They were both trying to overcome their struggles, but addiction ultimately claimed their lives. I'm grateful I sent that homie checkup text, but it hurts knowing it was too late. While taking a family photo, I realized I broke my family's generational trauma. Growing up, I witnessed my mother endure so much pain. She was often shouted at and hurt, and I faced the same when I made mistakes. Mistakes that every child makes. The thought of going home after school, especially when my dad and some relatives were around, filled me with dread. During family gatherings, when it was time for photos, my brother and I struggled to smile or stand still as our dad wanted. His anger would erupt, and we would be scolded to the point of tears. Just thinking about those moments makes me tremble. It would ruin our entire day. My mom often told me how my grandfather was even worse, and his father before him was no better. Both were heavy drinkers, and she feared I might end up the same. To protect me, she encouraged me to stay away from home after school. Now, living far away, I have a loving wife and a beautiful daughter. One day, my daughter used my wife's nail polish and lipstick to draw on the wall. My wife was understandably upset and called me explaining what happened. Our daughter, hiding in her tent, asked her to call me for help, hoping I would save her from punishment. In that moment, my heart swelled with happiness. She wanted me there when she made a mistake, trusting and loving me in a way I could never have imagined with my dad. I went home and chose not to be angry. Instead, I talked to her about how her actions could cause problems for both of us, and how we would need to clean it up together. I even bought her some drawing books and colored pencils to encourage her creativity. The most important moment came when we were about to take our family photo. My wife and daughter were ready, and as I set up the timer, my daughter started giggling. Soon my wife joined in, and I couldn't help but remember how different my childhood was. In that moment, I felt a sense of power, a cosmic shift that offered me a glimpse of peace from my past. I began to laugh with them, and we all burst into laughter, completely losing track of time. We laughed for a good 5 to 10 minutes before finally taking the photo. In that picture, my daughter was beaming, my wife was on the verge of bursting into laughter, and I wore a genuine smile. It's my favorite family photo now. I realized I have the power to choose how we respond to mistakes. I decided that in our family, laughter would prevail, and no one would be shouted at or punished. The trauma ends with me.
Should I continue babysitting for a lady whose baby is a doll? I'm 19 and I recently posted an advertisement offering babysitting services. A woman from my area reached out, saying she had an 11-month-old baby boy. I'll call him Toby. We agreed on a rate of £13 an hour for 3 hours of my time. When I arrived, she greeted me while holding what looked like a baby. She handed it to me, saying, "This is Toby." That's when I realized it was a doll. I hesitated, unsure if she wanted me to care for the doll or if I had misunderstood. I asked if there were any other children in the house, hoping to lighten the mood if I had misread the situation. She simply said, "No, just Toby." She mentioned there were baby monitors around for her peace of mind. I nodded, trying to mask my confusion. Before leaving, she kissed the doll on the head. I found myself pretending the doll was real, hugging it, putting it in a bouncer, and letting it sleep in the crib. While in the bathroom, I noticed a picture on the wall of a real baby who looked similar to the doll. It hit me hard. This must be her way of grieving. I cried a little in the bathroom, feeling the weight of her loss. But when I went downstairs, I put on a brave face and continued to care for Toby, even changing his nappy to reassure her if she was watching. When she returned, she asked how he was. I told her he was incredibly well behaved. I even said that since he was easier than most babies, I'd only charge her for 1 hour. She later messaged me, asking if I could babysit again. I haven't responded yet. My friends think I shouldn't take advantage of her when she's clearly struggling. They even suggest I tell her it's just a doll. But I'm torn. I don't know if that's the right approach. It feels like such a delicate situation, and I'm unsure if it's my place to say anything.
I found $500 cash in the middle of the LA Fitness parking lot and kept it. This happened this morning, January 19th, 2026. It snowed overnight, leaving a light covering in the parking lot at my LA Fitness. I parked, got out, and began walking toward the entrance. In the middle of one of the parking aisles, I spotted something white, lightly covered in fresh snow. I brushed it off and discovered a plain white envelope. When I opened it, I found exactly $500 in cash, crisp bills. I quickly realized what it was likely for. This location offers a deal where you can pay for a full year's membership upfront in cash for $500. Someone must have come ready to sign up, pulled the envelope out while getting out of their car, and fumbled it in the cold. I looked around. No one was searching the lot. No one looked panicked. The parking lot wasn't packed yet. I thought about heading inside to turn it in, but I didn't. I pocketed the envelope, shook off the rest of the snow, did my workout, and left with the money. Now, the guilt is really setting in. That $500 was probably a huge effort for someone, saving up to pay in full for the discount. They're likely stressing, retracing steps, maybe thinking it got stolen or lost somewhere else. I took the easy way out because no one was around, convincing myself it was finders keepers, even though I know that's not right. Morally, keeping found money like this, especially when I can guess the context and owner, is wrong. Legally, it's questionable too. I haven't touched the cash yet, the envelope just sits there, making me feel like a terrible person every time I look at it. I should have tried harder to return it, even if it was awkward. Has anyone else kept found cash in a snowy parking lot? Got drunk last night and hid $3,000 cash from myself. I found the money. My coffee pot is on a little cabinet that rolls out, and I just tossed it back there. I swear it was the last thing I touched in this house, and I was looking right next to it for a while. I got a little too drunk last night. I was chatting with a woman, and the conversation started to heat up. In hopes of getting her to come over, I began cleaning up. Apparently, I have trust issues because I hid my cash and then couldn't find it after tearing my house apart for hours. No, I'm not rich. That was basically all the money I have. I'm sure it'll turn up, but I just hope it shows up before some bills come due. I think it's time to take a look at my drinking habits. I was quietly freaking out. The real problem is that it wasn't lost, just hidden. And she didn't even come over. So I essentially lost a Saturday looking for cash I hid from myself for no reason. I faintly remember sticking my arm under something, like a mattress. But I've looked under every mattress multiple times. My real worry is that it's tightly folded and wrapped in rubber bands. So I might have tucked it somewhere small that I just can't see. I've checked everywhere, under every mattress, the toilet, the drop ceiling, and through every folded blanket and towel. I even pulled every piece of furniture off the wall and checked all my shoes. I keep laughing to myself about how clever I thought I was with my hiding spot. But in the end, I found the money. It was right where I left it, hidden behind the coffee pot. I can't believe I was so frantic over something I had just misplaced.
I'm dying, and I'm absolutely terrified. Thank you to everyone for the support and advice. I've received so many messages asking for updates, and I promise to keep you all posted. If anyone has any unconventional suggestions to help me, I'm all ears. At this point, I feel like I have nothing left to lose. I never thought I'd be facing something like this at 27. I only recently learned that what I have is incurable, and my body is deteriorating in ways I can't control. It all started 7 months ago with mild symptoms after getting COVID. Then, after taking antibiotics for suspected Lyme disease, I began losing collagen throughout my body. In just 1 week, everything changed. My urine became constantly cloudy, yet the hospitals couldn't find any signs of infection or issues. It feels like I'm literally losing myself from the inside out. They've tried immunosuppressants, even when there were no inflammation markers, but nothing has worked. I'm left hoping for a miracle, that somehow my body will stop this breakdown. COVID triggered something in me that made my own cells turn against me. It's just terrible luck. I know tomorrow isn't guaranteed, but I never imagined it would unfold like this, so brutally. I'm getting help for the emotional side, but I wish there was something for the physical part too. I crave hope, even just a glimmer of it. I want to scream, to escape, to do everything I can, but I feel so trapped. There's so much I still want to experience. I would give anything for just 1 more year of perfect health, to truly live it to the fullest. I recently watched the movie Soul, and it reminded me to cherish every moment. Please enjoy every minute you have. Life can change in an instant. Be kind to those around you. You never know when it might be the last day. I'm scared of dying. I don't know how to cope with it. I know I'm supposed to accept it, but I just can't.
Cleaned up my MIL suicide. A week ago today, my husband's mother took her own life. The weight of that moment is something I can hardly put into words. My brother-in-law and his grandfather found her, and my husband caught a glimpse of her from behind, sitting in her wheelchair. I was spared that image, but what I walked into was just as haunting. I saw my husband's elderly grandfather on his hands and knees, trying to clean up the blood with a bucket. My husband was about to join him, wiping the blood from the table and chair where she had been. I couldn't bear the thought of them doing that, so I urged my husband to leave. His grandfather, stubborn as he is, wouldn't go until he had cleaned up the worst of it. I stayed behind, wiping up what had dried and picking up the remnants left behind. My husband has faced unimaginable things in his 27 years. He's been shot at, lived through his father's suicide, and witnessed his mother's struggles in his childhood. But what I saw that day is the most disturbing thing I have ever experienced. I loved his mother deeply, and now, as the funeral is over, the reality of what I witnessed is crashing down on me. I feel like I should talk to my husband about it, but I hesitate. He saw her slumped over, in a way that I can't even imagine. I only saw the aftermath. I'm at a loss, unsure of how to move forward from this. Therapy is on my mind, but I can't shake the feeling that if he can endure what he did, then I should be able to handle my own pain too. Oh, and did I mention I'm newly pregnant?
Anyone else feel deeply tired of this world? Not suicidal, just done? I don't really know how to put this into words, but I'll try. Lately, I've been exploring ideas like nihilism, absurdism, and stoicism while looking at the world around me. Politics, greed, cruelty, war, and exploitation weigh heavily on my heart. The suffering of animals, children, and people in conflict makes me feel physically sick. I'm not suicidal. I don't want to harm myself, but I can't shake the thought of death. Not in a dramatic sense, but as a kind of impatience. Maybe death is peaceful. Maybe there's rest on the other side. I hate even admitting that. I feel exhausted by humanity. Betrayals, abandonment, and friendships that never quite work out leave me feeling misunderstood. I pour so much of myself into others, only to realize how disposable I am to them. It makes life feel meaningless at times, like I don't matter at all. I don't find joy in things anymore. The only comfort I have is food. Homemade, cruelty-free meals that align with my values. I care deeply about animals and reducing harm. I want to be a better human, but even that feels heavy sometimes. I struggle to find the motivation to work out or go outside. I have a business that's doing well, and I'm grateful for that. But mostly I work from home. I'm trying to take care of myself through massages, routines, therapy, and medication. But the emptiness lingers. I love my cats and care deeply for my partner. They ground me. Yet I still feel like I don't belong in this world. I feel too sensitive, like I see too much and can't unsee it. Sometimes I feel ahead in my values, wanting less cruelty and more compassion, which makes everyday life feel absurd and isolating. Humans can disgust me, and then I feel guilty for feeling that way. I don't know if this is depression, medication side effects, existential burnout, or just being an empath in a harsh world. Maybe it's all of it. I'm not looking for toxic positivity or simple advice to just be grateful. Does anyone else feel this way? Has anyone made it through this phase and found meaning again? If you felt this and survived, I'd really appreciate hearing from you. Thank you for listening.
I think my father took care of my uncle. For context, I've been in therapy for nearly a decade, processing the abuse I endured as a child. Over time, I've uncovered fragments of the trauma inflicted by my uncle. I remember the pain I felt, the bleeding, and those solo trips we took while my father was in the hospital. There were moments when I was too much to handle, and I was left unconscious. I can still picture my mother cleaning me, the burning sensation lingering. The signs were all there, and deep down I believe she knew. For a long time I thought she stayed silent, allowing the abuse to continue. But now, as I piece together my memories, I wonder if she did tell my father, and if he handled it. I recall conversations with a cleaning lady about how dusty my uncle's apartment was, and how he seemed to vanish overnight. I was just a child, lost in confusion. My father, a police officer, had the knowledge to make things disappear quietly. I don't blame him, nor do I wish he had acted differently. How could I ever approach him with a question like, "What happened to my uncle? He hurt me, didn't he?" In truth, I owe so much to my father. The thought that he ensured someone who violated a child, who violated me, would never see the light of day, brings me some comfort. The justice system often fails victims, especially when it involves those in law enforcement. He likely would have faced little consequence, while I would have been subjected to interrogation and forced to relive what my young mind couldn't fully grasp. I've discussed everything with my therapist, but I can't bring myself to share this theory, especially for my father's sake. I want to ask him to confront this unspoken truth, but I think we both understand that some conversations are best left unspoken.
I was diagnosed with schizophrenia and haven't told anyone. I'm 23 years old, and this year, after nearly 2 decades of hallucinations, I finally received a diagnosis. I probably shouldn't be terrified, considering I've managed this long without medication or support. But I am. It feels like I'm being forced to confront what I've dealt with my entire life. My hallucinations began when I was around 6. I vividly remember seeing relatives die, sea creatures swimming in my bedroom, and feeling watched at night. I was so confused and scared, especially by the sea animals, while everyone around me seemed puzzled by my fear. My parents never took me to a psychiatrist. They didn't believe in mental health. As a teenager, the hallucinations became less frequent, maybe 3 significant ones a year. They morphed into distorted reflections in mirrors, car crashes, and even unsettling images of a cat in distress. The paranoia also began during this time. I felt like people were watching me, or that my pets were somehow threatening. When I turned 20, things improved for a while. I went 2 years without major hallucinations, though the paranoia lingered. I thought everyone experienced those feelings, but I learned that wasn't the case. 5 months ago, everything changed. The hallucinations returned, and now I experience multiple episodes a day. I can't even be in my kitchen without feeling like someone is behind me, or look out my windows at night without seeing something unsettling. 3 months ago, I finally found the courage to see a psychiatrist. After sharing my experiences, I learned I needed help, while I still recognized it wasn't real. The diagnosis was schizophrenia, and I was shocked. It didn't make sense to me. I function well outside these episodes. I'm in med school, I have a job, and I care for my pets, even if they sometimes frighten me. I've started medication, and it seems to be helping. I even let my cats sleep in bed with me again, without fear. I'm in therapy now, working on a mental health improvement plan. But I don't know where else to share this. I don't want anyone in my life to know. It feels humiliating. I know I should tell people, especially for my safety, and I regret not seeking help sooner. But revealing this feels like losing my autonomy. People around me have noticed I seem off, but I brush it off. Professionals urge me to open up, yet I can't bring myself to do it. It's terrifying to have conversations only to find out they never happened. I really wish there was a cure.
I ghosted my best friend of 22 years. About a month ago, my best friend, who I'll call Leah, made a confession that turned my world upside down. Since then, I've cut all contact with her, and no one in our circle knows why. Her boyfriend and sister have reached out on her behalf, but I've only said that we're no longer friends and that I don't want any contact. I truly have no one to share this with, so I'm unloading it here. It's been weighing heavily on my heart. Leah has always presented herself as kind and caring, and until her confession, I believed that too. This all started when we were 14. Leah's mom was engaged to a man she didn't like. He was strict and controlling. Leah accused him of inappropriate behavior, and I remember being questioned by detectives about what I had seen during sleepovers. Later, I learned he was found guilty and sentenced to prison. Fast forward to last month. Leah and I were holiday shopping and hanging out at my apartment. She seemed down, and after a few drinks, she confessed that she had lied about her mom's fiancé. She hated him for being strict and controlling, and she knew that accusing him was the only way to break up her mom's engagement. During the trial, she cried on the stand, making her story more believable than his. Now, Leah is overwhelmed with guilt and has struggled with depression for years. She told me her therapist and boyfriend think her depression stems from being a victim, but I don't know how to process this. It happened so long ago, and I tried to understand her as a 14-year-old who didn't grasp the consequences of her actions. But in the end, I felt sad and disgusted. She stole a man's freedom and weaponized a trauma that real victims endure. I couldn't be friends with her anymore, so I ghosted her without explanation. Now, our friends and family think I'm the bad guy, but honestly, I don't care. I'm grieving the loss of 22 years of friendship and the life of a man who served time for a crime he didn't commit. Not every cancer patient deserves a miracle. I am a doctor who takes care of cancer patients. Many of them turn to religion after their diagnosis, approaching death in two distinct ways. Some say, I am going to be with God now. I have fought this cancer hard, but I have lived a good life, and this is God's will. These patients die peacefully, surrounded by family and friends, on their own terms. Then there are others who cling to hope, insisting, God will give me a miracle. They lie in hospital beds, actively dying, and any intervention would be futile. I have spent hours preparing them for this moment, exhausting every avenue, yet they still believe God will find a way. They leave this world kicking and screaming, traumatizing their loved ones, and leaving behind a trail of devastation, medical bills, and confusion because they didn't think to get their affairs in order. Last week, I had a patient with stage 4 cancer. Halfway through his initial treatment, he decided to stop for no reason and didn't return. 6 months later, he came back, weak and unable to eat, expecting a miracle from God. If God exists, then he gave you that miracle in the form of upfront treatment that could have significantly prolonged your life, even with a stage 4 diagnosis. But you ignored it. The whole family did, and now they blame the medical system for not being able to treat him because he is too sick. Less than a century ago, there was no treatment for this disease. Now we have many therapies that can prolong life. Yet, That isn't enough. They want a personal miracle, as if they deserve special attention. What makes them so deserving? Have they lived exemplary lives in service of others? Have they performed miracles for anyone? Did they follow the teachings of their faith? By what moral code do they expect God to focus a miracle on them? I don't know. It doesn't matter. A miracle was offered, and it was overlooked. In my mind, there is only one group of people who truly deserve miracles. Innocent children. The rest of us, we live in too much sin,